Alright, so we're going to get right into it. I've organized this video. It's a little bit on the longer side, but it covers a lot of the major points that a beginner to Google Analytics would want to know in order to pass that Google Analytics certification exam. So for those who aren't familiar, this is Google Analytics. It's a powerful and free reporting tool that Google provides for individuals and businesses that want to monitor site traffic and interactions on a number of different things, principally websites and mobile applications, but we'll get into other use cases and some of the points. So I've organized this course into three parts. We're going to do a general overview of what the tool is, and then jump into sort of the bulk of the video, which covers a lot of the sort of individual points. There's about 47 of them, and so we'll go point by point and provide some context about some of the things that you're going to want to know as a part of that individual certification exam. So we'll jump right into it. So this is Google Analytics. You'll see on the left hand side the tool is organized by what are called reports, and so you'll get the real-time reports, audience acquisition, behavior, and conversions. And this is just Google's way of categorizing how they're sort of organizing the data that's occurring on your website. And so if you jump into any of these, they'll give you individual reports. So traffic sources, for instance, is where your traffic is coming from. If we go into audience reports, it'll give us some lifetime value and give us more demographic information. So each of these individual things, these individual reports, provide some context and some sort of specific manner that you can then filter down in sort of more powerful analysis. Jumping right into our first point, Google Analytics is powerful enough that you can embed it into three main categories. First is e-commerce applications. So these are just your typical websites. Maybe you have a blog or a Shopify website that you're looking to monitor some data. Maybe you have a custom website that you're looking to sort of integrate and understand how users are interacting on your site. So the e-commerce is just sort of a catch-all for websites, on the internet. Next up, a little bit more sophisticated. If you're running sort of mobile applications, Google Analytics supports this as well, and it also provides cross platform integration, so you can do websites and mobile applications for the same, for the same company. Last one, I don't have as much experience with this, but you can use Google Analytics to integrate with online point of sale systems. And so if you're maybe trying to sort of monitor and manage revenue data through your sales system, Google Analytics helps with this as well. In order to begin collecting data on your website, you're going to need to do just really two simple things. You're going to want to go to your open a browser and go and type in Google Analytics, and the website will pop up. You're going to want to create an account, and after creating an account, then all you're going to need is the tracking code that you're going to embed in your website or mobile application. We'll get into instructions on how to implement that in further points. So implementing this tracking code, what does it allow you to collect? So if we jump into the audience reports, we can see down here it gives us a whole bunch of different options. If we go into the geo, it'll give us things like what language the user is browsing in. So you can see down here, English US, English Great Britain, España, French, maybe Danish. And we can see a whole bunch of different numbers and breakdowns about where a lot of the traffic is coming from. If we go down further, we can see browser and operating system. So you can see here a lot of our traffic is coming from Chrome, Safari, Firefox, but then also there's some other ones that maybe we hadn't really thought of. Yeah, browser, I've never heard of that. Samsung Internet. So you can, but it's still a top 5, and so you're going to want to sort of look at these things and take them into consideration as you're, planning your marketing strategy. And then also, you can see devices. So you can see actually specific um, pieces of technology that users are using this on. So look, a lot of people are coming to your website from the iPhone and the iPad, so maybe a little bit more of a preference towards mobile. Pixel, 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 so a lot of mobile devices, but this will also display um, uh, desktop computers as well. So you just want to sort of keep it in mind that the devices are going to be sort of a a wide spectrum of both desktop and mobile. Okay, so Google will end a session after 30 minutes of inactivity or closing a browser window. So, for instance, we're on just a sports website, and right now this is considered a session. I'm on the website looking at information. Okay, but if I go inactive and don't do anything for 30 minutes, then the session will complete, will end. Or if I decide that I just want to exit this browser altogether and exit this. So if I close this out and go into a different browser, then that session will have ended. So a session is just when a user loads a web page and does some interactions on your site. And that, just for the certification purposes, you want to know that it'll terminate after 30 minutes of inactivity or closing the browser window. Another thing to keep in mind, Google stores all of this data in their database and it can't be modified. This is really important because it allows, for us to understand and verify and trust that the data hasn't been corrupted in some way. But just, for certification purposes, just know that Google is storing all this in their database and allowing us to view and do powerful analysis on this, knowing that the data can't be corrupted. So Google accounts are organized in three main portions. You have your account. Okay, so right now we're actually in the Google demo account, but I have other um, analytics accounts. Properties and views, and actually these two are the same up here. So Google has sort of a quick access, and then we're actually in the admin portion, which right now is in the bottom left corner of your main menu in your analytics account. So if you go in here, you can create an account, and you can easily switch between a number of different accounts and make adjustments at the account level, make adjustments at the property level, and create new properties and create new views. So just for organization purposes, the account would be something that you've created with an email or given access to by a different company. Properties, a lot of times, these are sort of, for more sophisticated analytics implementations. You can consider these like different websites or mobile applications. So if I have a website, a mobile application, and a desktop application, then those might individually be three different properties. Okay, and then if I choose the website application as the property, I can create many different views within that property. And so a view would be, sort of a further breakdown of the property. So let's say, for example, I want to give access to team members in Australia a certain set of data, and team members in the United States a certain set of data, and maybe team members in Spain a certain set of data. And so a view would allow us to further segment those individual properties for within our account. But as far as hierarchy is concerned, the count is the highest. The property allows us to sort of more specifically target specific pieces of technology. That's where our tracking codes would be, and then the views allow us to sort of better segment that for organizational purposes. Okay, so at the account level, we can give access to users. So we manage teams here and give them access to properties and views. But just for understanding, users who have access at the account level will also have access to the properties and the views underneath that specific account. So if we go in here, we will not be able to do this actually because this is the demo account. But if we go into here to something that I owned, I can go in here and add new users, enter an email, give edit permissions, and then add that new user. Don't save. And that user that I would have then added would be given access to the individual properties that are allowed, that are underneath that account, and the views that are further segmented for that property. You can find the tracking code for individual properties underneath the property section. So if you go to tracking info, tracking code, and you'll see here is the global site tag with the tracking ID that you'll need to input into your website or mobile application or online point of sale system. And then this will begin to immediately track and collect data for you to be able to sort of verify and analyze in your Google Analytics account. So in order to begin collecting data, this needs to be added to each page's HTML on your site. A number of the main systems out there, so if you're using sort of like a WordPress or a Weebly or a Shopify, they'll have you just implement this tag and they'll take care of it for you. But for the certification exam, just know that the tracking code has to be implemented on each page's HTML in order to collect data on that individual page. More specifically, the tracking code needs to be placed after the opening header tag, and this is something that a developer can help you with. But if you're using one of those main systems, then they'll take care of this for you. So just for the certification exam, just know that it gets added after the opening header, the opening head tag, which is just an HTML tag. So what will this what will this tracking code get you? It will only collect data after you've installed it on your application, and you can verify this in Google Analytics in your account after you've installed it, because you'll begin to see data coming in, both real time and other pieces of data. But know for the certification exam that past data before the tag was installed is not available. So it only begins collecting data once that tag is installed on the website. Okay, so sometimes during this sort of organization or reorganization, you may want to end up deleting a view. So in view settings, you can actually move this to the trash can. I'm not going to do that, but know that if you do move it to the trash can, you'll have 35 days as an account administrator to revive that if you end up figuring out that you sort of made a mistake and want that past data back. Okay, next up, so we're going to talk about filters in your reports. So just a quick background on what filters allow you to do. So if we're in our view, we'll see filters here. So you can create these. We're in the demo account for Google Analytics. The filters allow us to implement filters on the data that is collected through our tracking code. And so here we have some AdWord campaigns that are being remade, something that's including the host name. So this is how the data is collected and organized in our reports. So if we go to one of my personal accounts and then go to the filters over here, you can see that we can add our own filters. So the filter type, we can exclude filters, do exclude filters, and we can include only filters. And each time that we do one of these, it will automatically modify the data that is collected and organized in our reports. So for instance, if we wanted to do traffic from the ISP domain, so exclude, so like if I spend a lot of time on my website and I don't want to include traffic of myself playing on my own website, I can create an exclude filter to exclude data that is collected from my ISP address. So that's just one example of a website filter. So there's sort of powerful ways for us to filter out or include or exclude data based upon whether or not we want that data as a part of the collection efforts that we want to sort of analyze in our own reporting efforts. One thing you want to make sure you do if you are beginning to use filters in your analytic account views is to keep one view that has access to the raw data. This is because filters actually filter out the data that is collected and stored in the database. So if you are, implementing multiple filters, you'll want to have one that has access to that original raw data that is unfiltered. You'll also want to keep in mind when applying filters that the order in which you apply them is sequential. So if we go in here, the filter data will first filter out filters with renaming AdWords campaigns for search and replace. Then it'll include data that has a specific host name. So this is just to sort of keep in mind when you're doing this to understand how the sort of data collection and filtering process operates and is this being stored in your database. We also need to understand that the only data affected by a filter will be the data after the filter is applied. So if we're in the audience overview report and we see a timeline April 3rd, 4th, 5th, for the week, if we had applied a new filter on April 5th, any data after that that's collected will have the new filter set to it. Anything before that, though, it won't retroactively affect all of that data in the database. And so filters are strictly for data collection purposes. And so just understand that, as the filter is applied on a specific date, data after that will be affected, but nothing before it. Staying in the audience overview report, we have this powerful tool up here, the date range comparison. And so we can actually set specific date ranges for how we want to view this data. So if we want to set it for the month, we can see that, April 2019. But also if we want to compare two dates, this allows us to compare one period to another. So if we want to compare to the previous year, we can do that, and we can get an overlay of the data from one year to the next. And so this is really helpful to understand how things are performing over time. So if you'll see in the audience overview in a number of these reports, you'll see all these different numbers. A lot of these reflect what are called metrics. And so we'll get into a number of these specifically, but understand, for the certification purposes, that the user's metric is the number of users that have at least one session on your website during that time period. So if you see here, for Thursday, March 21st, we had 2,339 users versus 2018, we had 4,247. So it'll give us percentage change on that specific metric. If you'll notice here, we can also adjust the metric that we want to monitor. So if we go to the bounce rate is a metric described as the number of users who come to your site without an interaction. So if a user opens up, comes to your homepage of your website and does nothing, they don't click on any buttons, they don't watch a video, they don't sign up for an email form, they come to your website and then immediately leave, that adds to what is called the bounce rate. So just understand that this is sort of an important metric for understanding how your sort of first interaction with your website is performing. So a dimension in Google Analytics is defined as an attribute of a data set that can be organized for better analysis. And let me show you what I mean. So here we have in the acquisition report, we're in the all traffic and channels. Okay, so this just gives us sort of a channel breakdown of where our traffic is coming from. And you'll see here we can select a metric. So right now we're on users. Okay, and you'll notice that we're still doing sort of a date range comparison. But down below, what you'll see here is primary dimension, and we can begin to select is for better organization and analysis. A primary dimension. So if we wanted to see the source of where these users are coming from as a primary dimension, we'll see this broken down in a number of different ways. Google Direct, analytics.google.com. So a whole bunch of different ways for us to understand and better analyze our data. So dimensions is just a way for us to better organize and attribute our data. So we touched over this briefly, but just to give a specific definition, metrics are numbers in a data set that are often paired with dimensions. And so you'll see a lot of these breakdowns by users, by sessions, by bounce rate. They'll be in a number of these reports. So metrics are sort of your top level data point that you're going to be interacting with before you begin further analysis with attribute dimensions. If you take a look at the table down here, what you'll see up here in the top right is a bunch of different views for how you can read and analyze this data. And so one of these in particular, so if you hover over these, you'll see the names for them. So there's a data view, percentage, performance, and comparison. So the comparison view will actually compare the data to the website average. And so each of these things, does some specific thing. So pivot table will put your data into a pivot table. Performance will measure the performance that visually. So keep those in mind if you want to sort of view the data in sort of a specific form. Next up is adjusting the sampling reports. I actually couldn't find a good example of this in Google Analytics, but it is a certification question, so I did find a support description that goes into detail, and I have something comparable. So greater precision uses the maximum sample size to give you the results that are most precise representation of your full data set, and a faster response uses a smaller sample to give you faster results. And so something similar in the goal flow, you'll see a drop down of show fewer connections and showing more connections. So it's just an option between two choices. And so if you see this new versus returning, there should be a little yellow icon next to the report title, and it should give you a drop down between choosing between greater precision and faster response. Okay, next up we are going to get into customized dashboards, and sharing template links will only share dashboards, and let me show you what I mean. So I've created this untitled dashboard here a few days ago, and dashboards allow you to sort of customize specific pieces of information that you want to share with teams. And so if you see up here in this top, you can share the template link, and it will tell you right here you're only sharing the dashboard configuration. No traffic data is being shared. So you can grab that link, share it with team members, share it with other individuals if you just have sort of a dashboard configuration that you want to show off. Okay, next up, we want to share a dashboard complete with the data. So if you notice here, we have an untitled dashboard, and the type right here is private. So if we click in here, and we have to have edit permissions on the specific view. So you'll see here Udalali, so I'm on the specific view that I have edit permissions on. And what we'll see here now is we have a share object. When we click share object, this will share this to anyone else who has access to this view. So if I go back to the dashboard, you'll now notice we have two untitled dashboards. Okay, so same name, but over here now, the difference is the type is shared, and so every individual who has access to this view will now have access to this custom dashboard with the data complete. In order to view information in the demographics and interest report, we need to do a few things. So you'll notice here we're in the audience reports, demographics, the overview. It gives us access to some specific information. Because of some restrictions on the internet in certain countries, we have to enable this now. So you'll see here we get male and female breakdown for user, age, type, for the interests. As an overview, we'll get shoppers, value shoppers, so just get more contextual information about our users. So if we go into an account that we own, what we'll then be prompted to do is enable the demographics and interest report. And so it couldn't be simpler. You accept this, and now it'll take some time before this data is available in our reports. To identify any issues with specific browsers or operating systems, also known as OS, you want to go into the Audience Reports Technology and click into the Browser and OS report. And then you get a breakdown of specific metrics for specific browsers and operating systems. So here we have users, and we can see that it's pretty flat line for Chrome, and we can see which browsers are performing the best and which may be underperforming, so we can identify any fixes if we need to. To identify which devices have been used to access your website or applications, we're going to use in the audience, right beneath the browser and OS, and in the mobile section, the devices report. And so the devices, again, will give us a breakdown of what mobile devices and desktop devices are being used to access our site. So you can see that Apple iPhone is really popular, the iPad, and a number of other mobile devices. And so it'll give us an understanding about maybe potentially who to target and what the makeup of the technology of our user group that's accessing the site is. So next up, Google automatically captures the source, medium, and campaign traffic source dimensions. Your dimensions, you remember, are attributes that we can further segment our metrics on. And so no doubt you have seen something like this. You've seen a URL, mywebsite.com, you've seen a source, you've seen a medium, and a campaign name. And so each of these things, Udemy, medium, social, and email marketing course equal, followed by an equal sign. And so the campaign is actually email marketing course, the name. The medium is social, and the source is Udemy. And so what these allow us to do is in Google Analytics directly attribute URL links to specific sources of marketing activity. And so they're very instrumental in helping us understand what is responsible for specific outcomes on our website. Options for sources include Google, so something that came directly from Google's search engine results. Direct, meaning that someone directly input your URL, and a website, so mail.googleplex.com, analytics.google.com. This could be any form of a website. So if you select over here, you see our primary dimension is source on our last one. If you click over to medium, you'll see that we have some other options. So CPC stands for cost per click. Referral traffic is any site that is linking to your website. So if somebody writes a blog post and links to your website, that's referral. And organic traffic refers to people who came to your site organically. Maybe they searched your website. And so just keep those options in mind. So when we're in the acquisition report for all traffic and channels, and you can see a couple of the breakdowns that you can get for channel types. So organic search, direct, referral, and display are all various channel types that you can view your information as. Let's say we want to analyze website section performance. We'd want to use the content drill down, which is in the behavior reports and site content section. So the content drill down looks at URLs and then allows you to filter against a number of different metrics. So page views, if it's a major URL or maybe one of the more ancillary URLs, we'll be able to see which are the most frequented pages on our site, see what the average time spent on those pages, and see if people are leaving at a high bounce rate. And so what the content drill down allows us to do is just understand, as a whole, which of the pages on our site are performing against sort of our core metrics. So staying here for a moment, we're going to move from the content drill down into the landing pages report, which is still in the behaviors report section. And so what this will give you is based upon the behavior that users are interacting with your site. So a list of your major landing pages. And so if you're not familiar with landing pages, you've probably interacted with them online more than you realize. Typically, if you're interacting with a brand for the first time, let's say through a Facebook advertisement or Google advertisement, they're pushing you to a landing page as the first page, primarily to collect some sort of email information. So a lot of times, if you've downloaded a white paper or an ebook or gotten a coupon, a lot of times those are specific landing pages for specific marketing activities. And so what you'll get here is a breakdown of those individual landing pages along with some other key pieces of information to understand how each of those individual pages are performing over time. So you can see here sessions, conversion rates, a whole bunch of key pieces of information. Lastly, in the behavior site content, we're going to talk about the exit pages. So this is where we'll find out if users are leaving some of our most important pages on our website. And so as you can see, our home page, we have 4,800 exits. That's to be expected. What we really want to keep an eye on is exit rate percentage and make sure that that's not, or that at least that's stabilizing over time. And so yeah, it'll give us a whole bunch of key pieces of information along with the major URLs of our website to understand how users are exiting the most important pages. So for accurate campaign tracking, Google Analytics really requires three things: source, a medium, and a campaign name. You can do these other ones, but the required ones for accurate campaign tracking, the ones that will be most important and crucial for analysis in Google Analytics, are going to be these three. And you'll be able to do a lot more with, let's see, for acquisition, understanding on each of these individual reports which medium is responsible for the exits, for the specific reports, which medium or source or campaign name is responsible for the results in each of these individual reports. So they're really instrumental and crucial as you plan your marketing activities. So we touched on this in an earlier point, but Google's campaign, their standard parameters are just you need to know for the certification. They qualify each of these source medium as UTM underscore source, UTM underscore medium, and UTM underscore campaign, followed by an equal sign on each of those. And you just need to know that as far as the certification exam goes, and as well as you're planning your marketing activities, what all this mess is, that's following, the URL. So lastly, the tool to create these campaign URLs, Google provides this. They provide the campaign URL builder, and with that you can enter your website URL, enter the source, medium, and campaign names, and then it will spit out this fancy link that you can then share in your email activities. You can share and your paid advertisements. You can do it and create these things and then share them all across your marketing activities. You can even convert this to a short link so that you can get rid of all that um, extra text at the end of those URLs into something that's sort of short and sweet for something that's like a tweet, or if you want to have something that's a little bit more clear and less messy. Just so we understand what does and doesn't qualify for a URL, underscores are perfectly fine to separate spaces. Sometimes they make it more clear. You don't need the underscores, so we could do that. But what you can't do is do spaces here, because that actually breaks the chain of qualifying. What the UTM campaign will track, and so space. Whole words are fine if you want to do it like that, or if you want to do underscores, but nothing else. Google Analytics has a really powerful feature, and it's called goals. And so goals allow you to set a specific goal for your business objectives. So this could be creating a newsletter. This could be making a purchase on the site, or reaching a specific URL. And then Google will actually display this in the conversions, goals overview, and you have a number of different reports that you can see to understand how users are completing those specific goals that you're trying to have them perform. So if I go into the admin, what you'll see here is you'll see an option under the views to create a goal. And so a goal here, for create a new goal, we can create all sorts of different things, and they give us a bunch of templates. So placing an order, creating an account, contact us, live chat, update, all sorts of different revenue acquisition and engagement goals. And then we can get this goal description and goal details. But goals primarily are to help to identify in analytics that users are achieving some certain outcome. There are only really 3 requirements to create a goal. You need to identify the type. So here, maybe we want to have a user, track who's creating an account on our site. We have to have a name, so create an account, and we have to have a slot ID. And so Google will assign this by default. And so we just need to make sure that we keep track of what those individual things are. You're only allowed, I believe, up to 20 per view, maybe 20 per account. So getting more specific on this, for the goal type, if we wanted to do a destination type, or duration goal, pages on screen, or an event, let's say for this example we want to do a destination. So when a user maybe signs up for our email list. So if we get here, we want to match this with the URL that the user is going to ultimately be landing upon. So in this case, it could be /thank-you. But because we're starting with a begins with and equals to a regular expression, equals to would be the most exact. So only URLs that are exact matches of /thank-you. Begins with would take /thank-you, .html, .php. It would even do .receipt.html. So begins with is more generic, meaning that if that URL begins with a /thank-you, anything after the fact is ancillary, and so the goal will actually still complete with that. And so if we go back up to goal description, just to sort of recover this, you can do all sorts of different goals. If you want to make sure that a user is on your website for more than 5 or 10 minutes, after an email, or if you wanted to make sure that they're viewing a number of them, capturing how many screens they're viewing after they land on a landing page, and then more sophisticated is doing custom events. So when a user performs an account creation or all sorts of different things that you want to be able to track and customize, you can do this with goals. Just a few things that you need to know for the Google Analytics certification. You can advertise with Google Ads on Google Search and Google Display Network, and you can actually view a lot of that data in the acquisition for Google Ads report. So just something to keep in mind for the certification and as you move forward with marketing activities. If and when you do begin to use Google Ads, you want to enable auto tagging because it'll simplify a lot of your campaign URL building. You won't actually have to go into the campaign URL builder and build those URLs. Google Ads will take care of that for you, and then it'll display down here apparel, Google brand, bags, accessories, all sorts of different insights, and it'll all be automatically generated for you. And our last point, to view which bid adjustments resulted in higher conversions, view the bid adjustments report. So you can find this in the acquisition reports for Google Ads and bid adjustments report. And so it'll give you a breakdown of the individual bid adjustments and what the associated improvement across a whole number of different metrics. And so you can filter this and segment this and update this with a number of different dimensions. Okay, that's it. I hope that that was informative and not too long, but I think that it covers a lot of the major points that you'll see in the beginner's questions for the analytics certification exam. And so from there, if you need to rewatch that just to get a better understanding, and it should prepare you for the practice exam, and the practice exam should prepare you for the actual certification exam.